currently working on expanding the orchard. This is some of the lighter work around here that I can do on my bad leg. I'm starting to walk around though again now, so I can lose the crutches and use some more of my tools, which is really nice. I have a hazelburt plant right here, and it's being shaded quite badly by a spruce tree. And so the morning sun comes up somewhere over here and sets back in this direction. And this tree's in the way, shading things pretty bad. Also, the needles from spruce and fir trees are quite acidic, and I don't think it's going to help to have any of these trees in the long run down here around my orchard. I leave some maple and birch trees around, smaller ones, just to cast a little bit of shade on the ground to help with moisture, and also so that in the fall the leaves will drop and add more mulch to the soil around here. But other than for hardwood trees, or I think what we call deciduous trees, all of these types of trees need to come down. So as I expand my orchard outward, I'm going to be cutting any spruce and fir trees. You can see my fence running along here. That helps to keep moose back from coming in and grazing. All the limbs and stuff are going to end up here on the fence. And the tree trunk itself, because this is a nice straight one, I think I'm going to try to salvage that for a log over on my greenhouse building, because I still have to do the back end of my greenhouse for another year. I wanted to have that done for this fall, but circumstances, I just can't work at certain projects just yet. And so we'll take this one down though today and skin it and set a log aside that I'll carry over at a later time to my greenhouse. And yeah, we'll keep expanding the orchard outward and see how far we get. So I'll do a pan around now so that people can see where I'm at. If you go back a couple videos, you'll see that this was totally overgrown when I got down here this spring. And so far I've done quite a bit of work to trim out around all the trees and shrubs that I've already planted. And I've also found right here, I found wild hazelnut growing in various clumps around my orchard, which is great. I still have some plants that are unidentified, like the one over there, so I'm hesitant to cut certain things. But it's coming along really nicely. So that gives a perspective of where things are at the moment. And then as we work, we're going to try to cut back the periphery all the way around the orchard and open this up for planting in the future. Yeah, that opened up a little more light right away. If I skin this right away, it'll go a lot easier than if I let this sit here for several weeks. Everything this time of year is quite wet under the bark because everything's living and growing well. And so this is the time of year to skin your logs right away. And do it before your logs dry out so that the bark peels off really easy. I've got another spruce tree there that'll come down. And I've got a spruce here that I'm probably going to top somewhere up here and leave this as a fence post because it falls right in line with my fence. For moose, you need to have a pretty high fence to keep those things out. And they've already bust my wires down here once this year, but I had wires running at two different heights above all the brush, one about here and one a little bit above my head or about the top of my head height, so that when a moose walks into it, it might hit up here at the upper part of his neck. But I'll take a few of these limbs off there now, and then we're going to use the bow saw to do a clean cut on this and drop it right on top of the fence here. It'll take a couple years before that rots at the base and falls over. And in the meantime, that's going to give me something that I can restring my metal lines up against. That's the go. Perfect. And this here tree, because of its thin diameter up here at the top and not very long, I'm just going to put the whole thing over here on my fence once it's down. They're not bad. That makes a good barrier against animals. Now again, moose are so tall that they can step over quite a large pile of brush, but it's a start. And then I have my metal wire to run through the trees. You can see over there on that birch tree, those lines cutting across. That's the metal wire actually growing into the tree, or the tree growing around the wire, I should say. And definitely not healthy for the tree, but the tree has stayed alive, along with a few other poplar along here. And that way they stay as sturdy fence posts. And I don't really care eventually if they do choke off and die, because they're putting shade out here onto my orchard. And then in this little corner that we just cleared, I've got an unknown species right here that I'm not going to cut just yet until I figure out what it is. And right here we have another hazelnut. That's what's dangling there off that little branch. So we've been able to clear out an area for that hazelnut to grow now and open up quite a bit of sunshine into the orchard back here. Now I'll take you down the fence line. Here we have our hazel burt. There's a wild hazelnut. Here's a pear tree. And there's just a little gap we have in our fence down here so that we can come and go, but this needs to be closed off. And I'm going to have a smaller little spot between a couple trees to enter the orchard so that animals aren't as likely to find it. So we've basically finished off this area. There's our fence line there for the moose running. This one here was up this high and something ran into it and got it loose, so that has to be repaired. Wild hazelnut again. And here's the work we did today, putting logs on here. This is the first log we cut that's going to go over to the greenhouse to help us finish that construction. And here's the corner that we've opened up here today. Our food forest is coming along. That's the long-term vision down here, is that this area in behind me on the other side of this fence is all going to be food forest, and it'll be a mix of fruit trees and nut trees and anything else I can find down here that's edible. I figured trees are going to be a much better source of food than having to do a garden every year. I've tried growing potatoes. You can go back on the channel and look at that, and it was a lot of work for very little return. But over time, if I can get these trees to establish, I think we're going to produce a lot more food off of fruit and nut trees than what I would be able to gardening, and it's not something that needs very much input each year. So long as you intersperse them with various species. I also have alder and silverberry for nitrogen fixing species, and they say so long as you mingle them well and separate them, that you don't have just a monoculture of trees, then pests shouldn't be able to go in and destroy all of your fruits or whatever in one go. So I hope we'll have a very resilient orchard slash food forest down here, maybe in another 10-15 years.